we have new target designs for 2025. We are super excited about this. This is called the PCSL Practical Target now, rather than the K-Zone target. So PCSL Practical is the new standard version of the PCSL target for 2025. We're gonna phase these in. If your club still has the old K-Zones, just go ahead and run them, but start getting these when you need to restock. You're gonna see these make their first major appearance at the Ranch 2 Gun in Texas that's coming up. And of course, we're gonna be using them at PCSL Nationals and other majors that we put on. This version 3 of the target that is available now on chltargets.com is by far the best complete coherent design of the original PCSL target's intended purpose from day one. Here it is. So right off the bat, you can tell it shares exactly the same outer profile as the K-Zone target. You'll probably notice that we changed the labeling of the head box from a K to a T. We figured going forward, it's gonna be easier to change it early rather than later. And T is just, it makes more sense in almost every conceivable way. It can mean 2 for 2 alpha. It can mean 10 for a 10-point single shot. The shape is closer to a T, and you can say tango instead of kilo. And while I have no idea why people would do this, they kept calling the K-Zone the kill zone, which we never said it was called the kill zone, but now you can't anymore. So it's the T-Zone going forward. We just think it makes more sense. You'll also notice that it is raised up from the neck a little bit, and there's now a little bit of Charlie separation between the alpha and tango. One of the big complaints that we had from high-level shooters and match directors was that the target was actually less interesting to shoot than some other variants, and it was difficult to create interesting target presentations with hardcover because of the connected A-zone that went all the way around the head. And after experimenting for a while, finally got this version made with some target variants that I'm excited to show you. And this iteration totally removes that negative from the K-Zone target, and it offers some of the best and most interesting hardcover presentations you can get. So if we look at the old version of the K-Zone target, you can see how no matter if you hardcover across or at a diagonal or a tux, you're always leaving most of the alpha and kilo available. Because the kilo was also pretty big, the correct aiming scheme, or the most optimal aiming scheme, was usually just to throw 2 rounds somewhere in here, like a little bit at the shoulder neck area, but maybe a little low, maybe a little high, depending on if there was a no shoot or anything like that. No matter how the hardcover was presented, unless there was one presentation, which was the vertically split half, left or right, there was almost no reason to have hardcover. And we saw alpha counts on stages, and we saw extremely high alpha count ratios on stages. And it didn't mean the target was easy to shoot. It didn't mean you were shooting it incredibly fast, but it was like, when you make interesting presentations, all that's left is alpha. So it removed a little bit of the nuance, and high-level shooters were not able to separate themselves by the hits that they were getting on the targets. Even though bringing back the Charlie separation doesn't do as good a job of representing real-world effectiveness, but from a purely competitive shooting sport perspective, we feel like this is the target perfected. The A-zone has been reduced a little bit to a 6" by 9" profile. Nice. And we've adjusted slightly the way that the angles and corners of the zones line up so that you have amazing hardcover possibilities. Now this is pretty cool. This was one of the test targets where it drew the new zones that we were working on. We did so many of these iterations to finally come to the perfect dimensions. But if you see closely there, you can see all these little lines that line up where through the center of the target, all the corners are aligned in any way that you want. All these notches still exist so that you can easily recreate consistent hardcover presentations as a match director, including vertically split, including horizontals at different levels. Let's go over a few hardcover presentations that might be interesting. So let's say you cut it off here. Previously, all of this would still be A-zone, and you're really just removing Charlie and Delta. Now look at it. You have hardly any A-zone, and now it becomes a very tough decision on your aiming scheme. Maybe if it's down here, you still want to go for the A, but that T is looking pretty big compared to the rest of the available target. But when you start lifting up the hardcover to about here, look at how much of that T you have compared to that little sliver of A-zone that's left. And because there's now a good amount of separation, you're going to get less lucky hits in the T-zone, and you're going to have to decide as a competitor what your actual aiming scheme is going to be. Are you going to try to hit the T-zone or the A-zone? You can't split the difference anymore because there's that Charlie zone gap, which does penalize you pretty heavily in minor. Now I have something really exciting that I'm super happy that we have now, and that is the Practical Mini Target. This is a half scale PCSL Practical Target. So you can see this one also has the new T-zone. It has the hardcover notches if that's something you want to do, and the white side has nice visible perf. So we're very excited to start using these to challenge rifle fundamentals more in smaller bays, especially if you guys are shooting PCSL 2 gun at an indoor range. How awesome is it to be able to effectively double the challenge that you're presenting to the shooters. So for comparison, obviously, if you go half scale, the area is a quarter of the size. So very similar to a lot of the mini IPSC targets that you guys see at rifle matches. We're very excited to be able to offer this. It's available now, again, chltargets.com. And we're really excited to see the stage design opportunities that this type of target opens up to help us bring more of that IPSC rifle, pure fundamentals focused shooting into the US so that we can raise the quality of our matches. Now I got one more thing for you. So I'm just gonna show it to you and then I'll explain it. This one's called the PCSL Practical Target. This one I'm about to show you is called the PCSL Competition Target. Makes sense, practical and competition. This is what it looks like. So the PCSL Competition Target is as comfortable as we were doing a non-humanoid target variant. There's a problem with the IPSC targets, which is when you turn them, you're not allowed to turn them past 45 degrees because there's no visual reference for up or down. So these notches up here, about a third of the way down the target, tell you which side is up and which side is down. And what that allows us to do is keep the T-zone because we think it's a very interesting mechanic as part of the game. We didn't want to make a non-humanoid target that just completely omitted that. But you can see the scale of the T-zone is actually 75% as large. This small T-zone is bracketed exactly halfway in this upper strip of the target that you can reference based off of these little indents, even when the target is at distance, so you know where you have to aim. Additionally, every single other zone on this target matches the practical target 1-to-1, except that the shoulder area is connected now to form kind of a blob shape, and there is a little bit of D-zone that comes in because of that. And this target, again, offers a lot of very interesting hardcover opportunity. This is suddenly a much different presentation because that T-zone is so small and it's harder to reference because there's extra Charlie and Delta around it. Now it becomes a more difficult choice as a shooter whether I want to hit that little bit of alpha or go for the T-zone. One other thing that I want to present to you guys is that if you do something like take away the top of these targets, the target almost becomes an IPSC target. Both of these targets, if you were to hardcover the upper portion of either of these targets, you end up with exactly the same target presentation, which I think is a very interesting feature. One other thing that's extremely cool is that when you are shooting these at distance, you can reference where the A-zone is perfectly because it's vertically aligned with the flat edges of the sides of the target. I'll show that to you again so you can see the lines. In fact, the C and D zone and A zone are all aligned across the vertical center of the target, which makes it very, very nice for referencing where you want your point of aim to be when there's weird partials or there's a lot of distance. And again, we're really excited to offer this target as an option for you guys. We know it's probably not going to be the most used target in PCSL, but it gives match directors a different option to use. Just like in USPSA, you can use the USPSA target or the IPSC target in the same match. And the slightly larger area of the Charlie and Delta up top, plus the ability to challenge shooters more with partial presentations because the one-shot neutralization zone is much smaller, will allow you as a match director or stage designer to really achieve the precise challenge that you want to. So again, to reiterate, we have the new PCSL practical target with the changes we talked about, the competition target, which is identical except for the connected upper area, and the smaller high risk, high reward T-zone. Then we have the mini version of the practical target for especially challenging rifles in bays with a limited distance. This is the only mini target we're offering. We're not offering a mini version of the competition target. And then of course we have the PCSL no shoots, which is red with the black X to help those with color blindness for reference, and it just looks awesome. So that's it. Those are the targets for PCSL in 2025 and going forward for the foreseeable future. And with these 4 target types, we are super excited to see what you guys do as stage designers. And we are excited to be able to use them at our major events this year.